Okay, good evening, everybody. I am back in my study, and this is episode 2 of my series of author interviews. Today I'm speaking to Eoghan Egan out of the lovely country of Ireland. I've never been, but I hear good things. I've got some friends who live there. Yeah, it's very nice to see you again, Eoghan. And if you'd like to tell the audience a bit about yourself and about your books, the floor is yours.
Good to see you too again, Louis. Lovely to share this space with you. Yeah, sunny Ireland for a change. It's been 28, 29, up to 33 degrees for the last 5 or 6 days. It's just,
Oh, wow.
it's a beautiful country when you get this sunshine. So yeah, I've been writing I've been writing all my life, basically. I've been writing short stories since I was a child. But in 2012, 10 years ago, I decided to write long form. And I wrote the first draft of my first book in 2012, and it took me until 2019 to actually self-publish it. I was a reader all my life, and I thought if I was a reader, surely I'm a writer. But it doesn't actually work like that. There's a lot of work that goes into writing. So I went on a lot of courses and a lot of festivals, and I met a lot of people, and had to do a lot of work behind the scenes in order to get my book right. Then my first book is called Hiding in Plain Sight, and it's set here in the Irish Midlands. When I was writing that, I realized I wasn't going to get the full story into a book. So I decided to write a trilogy. The second book has been The Other Side of Fear, is out about 3 months now, doing very well, and I'm writing the third book in the trilogy. So that's what keeps me out of mischief.
Yeah, indeed, that's how it works, doesn't it? I found that I've also actually with my first book. It's quite interesting. I started writing this story in 2010, and
Wow.
I did the first 7 chapters of the first draft, and I just kind of stopped because I wasn't sure at the time, what I wanted to say with the story, or what the meaning behind it really was. And subsequently, what happened was the computer that I wrote it on got lost in a move. It got damaged in a move, and then I just kind of like had to let it go. But I often found myself, in between then and since I finished The Discarded, I've got about 3 or 4 other novels that I wrote as well that are in a folder that will never see the light of day because I didn't think they were good enough to even try and get it out there. Couple of short stories as well later, and then I somehow a year ago circled back to The Discarded, which originally was called Bear Claw, by the way. But
Bear Claw, where did that come from? Because of the forests,
the forest, the setting, and the snowy in the Arctic, and there's bears and wolves and all sorts of things. I think that's the only thing that I knew for sure that I wanted to do in the story. I was so sold on the setting. Back then I wasn't sure what, and I think I was a bit young, to write the story as well at the time.
And where did the inspiration come? I've read the book, by the way, and it's a classic thriller. It's absolutely brilliant. It has everything going for it. There's a murder. Actually, there's 2 murders in the first chapter, which is the way it should be.
Yeah.
And I love your ending. But where did the inspiration come from?
Look, I think it's. I always knew I wanted to write long form or keep writing long form novels as well. I'm not a big fan of short stories and not reading or writing them really. But the inspiration for it is quite a combination of things. I watched an interview many years ago about a film director or an interview with the film director, and he mentioned, I don't even remember the movie, I don't remember the director's name, but I remember him mentioning that the snowy setting of the movie was a character in itself in his story. And I thought, that makes sense, because every time, when you read a book or you watch a film that's set in that kind of remote, snowy setting, it automatically adds tension to everything.
Of course.
So I think, like, for me, it was, there was a book, there's a true life book called The English Prisoner by a guy named Tig Haig. And I read that book many years ago, and what happened was he's a British guy, and he flew to Moscow for business, and he got arrested and sent to a Siberian prison for 15 years. So some of the inspiration came from there. And then there's also a series on the History Channel called Alone. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Where
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it.
Yeah, they pick like 15 people and they drop them in remote locations in the Arctic Circle. And then if you can survive on your own the longest, you win like $1 million or something. So kind of like a lot of it came from there, but I really feel lucky with this story, because I think once I got halfway, it kind of started writing itself. I had an outline for it and a synopsis for it, but it's very far from, it ended up being quite far from what it was intended to be, but in a good way. I wouldn't say I'm a pantser, but I do quite a bit of planning and plot layout and that sort of thing. But it definitely
I absolutely, it's there's quite a bit, there's quite a lot in it, because you have a few characters that do different things and they all come together in the end. I love Ellis Neal. I think he's a great character, and I hope you bring him back in some other stage. I also love Rose. I have a character in my book called Sharona Waters, and she's a bit older. She's 23. She's a bit older than Rose, but she has that same feisty character that just won't give up and fights for what is right. And I love her. I love her. I don't want to give the plots away here, because there's so many twists and turns, but I love the way her attempted escape from the cage at one stage, 3/4 way through. That was ingenious, and that took a fair bit of thinking out now on your part. Really, really good. I've never read something like that before, and it was really, really good, really, really good. No, so really, I can see that. I can see a lot of thought actually went into, especially the second half of the book. But a lot of thought went into it, and that's where writing. I think that's where storytelling comes in. You can't just, the first draft you can write what you like, but that's really only the opening. The fun or the hard work really starts once the first draft is done. Louis, do you agree with that? I mean, my draft of the first book, Jesus, I don't know, 10 or 15 probably, 10 or 15 drafts probably. Before I got it anyway right. Just deleting stuff that wasn't relevant. And do you agree with that, or did you just go with your first draft and bang?
Look, I think I know every writer's process is different. Like when you start writing, you start listening to what other writers do and what their processes are. And I keep hearing the word trim, keep trimming, trim what you don't need. And I think for me, it was the other way around, because from first draft to final book, I added 10,000 words instead of taking away.
Oh, wow. That's unusual. That's unusual now.
Yeah, because I think for me, it's like when I have a story in mind, I try and get it out. I get the bare bones out as quick as I can. And then when I edit myself, I kind of zoom in on the story. And that's where the descriptions and the setting and the little nuances and quirks that the characters have come in.
Yeah,
because I leave that
I
out
can
in the beginning
understand.
completely.
Yeah, I can understand from reading your work how you probably wrote the first draft in 60 or 70,000 words, because there's no fluff. You just cut all the rubbish, and
Yeah,
from the opening chapter, a lot of um, debut writers, including myself, when I started first, you write yourself into the story. So like it was a fine day, and the guy was walking here or doing there. I mean, that means nothing to the story, but the writer is trying to write themselves into the story, which is fine. And it's good to write that and then just throw it away, dump it. But you actually started writing the action. So I can understand how you have written your story in 50 or 60,000 words, because there's no fluff. And that's the way a thriller should be. There should be no stuff that doesn't matter. It should
yeah,
be all to do with the story. I love the ending of your story. I love the way it's very poignant, the way you have the lost dog coming back in with Ellis and Rose as another discarded animal that has suddenly found a home. I love that. That was really, 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 really nice.
thank you.
But because Ramona, Ramona's another great character. I mean, you have great characters in the book.
Thank you.
Is your next book going to be a follow-up? Because the ending leaves it wide open for a
Yeah,
follow-up if you want.
yeah. Look, I think for Ramona herself, her ending was very wide open, and she wasn't originally in the book. I wasn't going to put her in. She kind of
Oh, she's a great character.
she came to me at a stage in the book where I kind of felt I needed to add a bit of spice into that part of the book. It's like the latter part of the middle of the second act. I kind of felt like
Yeah,
it was slumping a bit, and we needed a bit of a just a bit of a you
yeah.
know a
Bring it up
shot of
again. Mm.
yeah a shot of adrenaline just to get it back up, and I think
Yeah,
she did that. Yeah, her ending is
yeah.
very open ended. I did that on purpose because she turned out to be my favorite character from the book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, and my second book,
Yeah.
she won't be. None of the characters will be in the second book, but there is something in the works, maybe later on for her specifically. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, they all can come back because Ellis and Rose. I mean, their story can be continued on now as well. So I mean, you've done a great job on leaving your door open for if you want to continue.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
well,
Look, I
it's
think
it's it's a
we're
yeah.
sorry. A lot of what I kept in mind with this book was uh, I wrote a quote. I read a quote about Dean Koontz once. Somebody asked him, "How do you come up with your stories and your storylines?" And he said, "You know what? You take your main character and you chuck him in as much trouble as you can, and watch him claw his way out." Um, and
Yeah,
I don't know. I think that works. That worked for me with this book. Do you
yeah.
have you found like a similar kind of philosophy that worked for you with your first and your second book?
Um, yeah. So there's another author, another British author called Ray Bradbury, and he said that whenever I'm writing about a character, the character is sitting on my shoulder, and whatever they see, I see, and I just write that. And I'm kind of like that. I'm kind of in the moment. This is what I think the character would do, and write it down. This is what I think the character would say, and write the dialogue. This is how the character would react. And then you turn the corner, and the character sees something else. And I find when I'm doing that, Louis, that I have an idea. For the two books I've written, for the three books, the first three, I always knew the start. I always knew the start where I wanted to start, and I knew the finish. I don't know the finish of the third book yet, but for the first two, I knew the start and I knew the finish.
Yeah.
The middle bit was vague, but I had an idea where I was going with the middle bit. But as you're writing the character, I found this character on my shoulder, whether it's Sharona or Ferdia or Hugh, whoever, they go off in different directions that I would never even think of.
Yeah.
And sometimes writing is a very tough mistress, because she never, at any other job, at 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, you can close your computer and you're finished. Writing is completely different, because at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's a character on your shoulder saying, hey, this is what you should be doing. Or what about this? What about this? So it never ends. Your brain is forever thinking of new ideas. So writing is a tough gig. But I find that I try to get into I try to do what Ray Bradbury does and just see the character on my shoulder and see what they see.
Yeah.
Just see what they see and write it. Do what they do. Yeah. Write whatever their dialogue is. Ian Rankin is a big inspiration. So is Val McDermott of mine. But I read widely. I love, you're South African, so Dion Meyer is a serious favorite author of mine. Mike Nichol is another favorite of mine. But I love Jen Harper. I love Jen Harper, the Australian writer, or Peter Temple from Australia. So Michael Connolly, John Sanford from Ed McBain. Elmore Leonard is a huge inspiration to me as well. Just that sharp, pithy, no nonsense dialogue. Just get to the point.
His characters are something else completely. Like, they literally, I know people use the term leap off the page, but his really do. They really, really do.
Yeah. Elmore Leonard doesn't have to go into any big descriptions of people, because you know from their dialogue, you know from the way that they talk, you can see exactly what they're like. Yeah. Whether they're suave, sophisticated, or whether they're a street bum, or he just had a way. So had Ed McBain. There's very, very few writers that just have that pithy way of bringing 2 sentences and they can tell you a whole story. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. But yeah, I read. You can see part of my library here behind me. I converted a garage. I had a garage for years and years, and I don't put in the car anymore. So I decided to convert it into a library. I have books all over the place. Yeah, it's very good I read voraciously. Yeah, well, it was either that or fill it with rubbish. So might as well fill it with books. Yeah. So inspiration can come from. I love the fact that what you said about hearing that guy about the forest, using the forest and the cold as a character. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And that alone gives you an idea of a book. So you can be in McDonald's and overhear a conversation, and something can click in your brain. And it'll only work for you, because other people might hear that and it means nothing to them. Yeah. But there was an Irish author, Maeve Binchy. She was she's dead now, but very, very famous. And she used to travel on buses and trains and eavesdrop on people. Oh, yeah. And listen to conversations. And that's where she got an awful lot of her ideas from. Yeah. An amazing writer. Yeah. So ideas, you can pick up ideas anywhere. You can read a magazine, read a comic, and just see something that strikes something in your head and say, yeah, that'd be an idea. Yeah, I agree. And I also, as far as ideas, I'm quite a big Stephen King fan as well. And like his last, well, not his latest book, the one before, Billy Summers, is not a horror story. Ironically enough, it was a thriller. And he said he got the idea for the whole book from walking his dog, and he walked past the house, and there was a window, a wide, low window, this far from the ground in the one house. And he thought, I wonder what the view would be like from in there. from there.
You'll just literally see people's feet. That's all you'll see. And that's where his idea for a 450-page novel came from.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's
Yeah.
just something, it's like you said, where even when you're not working, you're working. Sometimes
Absolutely.
sometimes to the
Absolutely. Yeah.
detriment of the people who are in the room with you. You know, because like
Yeah.
often my wife would say something and she's like, I've been talking to you for 5 minutes. And I'd be like, I'm so sorry. But yeah, it's true. Like you go
Yeah.
on a tangent, and or you wake up at 2 o'clock in
Yeah.
the morning and you discover a plot hole, a massive plot hole
Yeah.
in a book that you're writing.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. I remember the first book I wrote, I was probably back in 2015 now. I'm not sure what edited was, probably edited 5 or 6 of the first book, but at like 3 o'clock in the morning, there was an issue which I can't even remember now, but there was an issue that I couldn't figure out. My bad guy had to be someplace that's doing a certain thing, and I couldn't figure out how he was going to get there, because there was a storm and snow and all kinds of things. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, fast asleep, it came to me. You just like, it's crazy how these things come out, isn't it?
And then you're like scramble in the dark for
I
even
always have a pen and a bit,
yeah.
either a pen or a bit of paper, or it's almost too much effort now to get your phone and go to dictate and put in.
Yeah.
So I always have a biro and a bit of paper or a notebook. And even in the dark, you can scribble enough to know that. Because I also learned, Louis, that in the middle of the night, you'll say, yeah, I remember that in the morning, but I never do. I
No,
never do.
no.
So I've learned and taught myself to actually write it down now, because I never remember in the morning what this brilliant idea was.
Yeah.
So
I'll
yeah,
definitely take that on board, because I've had moments like those, and then by the time you're like you say, you're half asleep. By the time you found your phone, unlocked it, the light shining in
yeah,
your eyes. By the time I get it on the note app, I've forgotten what it was.
absolutely.
Because
Yeah,
it comes
yeah,
and it goes
yeah,
like that, and then you're like,
yeah.
okay,
But those ideas that come in your sleep are absolutely gold dust. They're absolutely brilliant,
yeah,
because it's not I don't think it's your full brain that's thinking. It's your I don't know what part of your brain is actually working, but it's something that you normally wouldn't think of during the day.
yeah.
So they're absolutely precious. They're well worth writing down. So once you had your book written, Louis, what was the process in? Did you decide to send it out for submission? Did you want to self-publish? How did you get to Kingsley?
Well, I was on the verge of self-publishing. I was like sitting there ready to pull the trigger
There.
this far away, and I got an email from them because I wrote the book, and you know, as you do, you try and send it to agents first.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm not lying to you, Owen, I must have sent close to 200 emails in the space of a month, maybe 2 months.
Wow.
And so far, I'm
Wow.
sitting on 75 rejections back. And then in among that process somewhere, because I finished writing the book in December of last year, just before Christmas, and it was polished, it was edited. You know, I had a cover designed and the whole 9 yards. Like I said, I was sitting on Amazon on KDP, and I was like, should I, shouldn't I? And then I decided to wait, because I saw I actually follow Kingsley publishers on social media, and then
Okay.
they put a post up that said that they are accepting unsolicited manuscripts for submission.
Yeah.
So I sent it to them, and I
Yeah.
didn't hear anything for 4 months, 3 months, and then yeah, I
Mm.
got an email on, I think it was the 3rd or the 4th of April of this year, and then they
Mm.
said they said they read it and they really enjoyed it, and they would like to publish the book. And first of all, I think my first reply was, um, you sent this to me. Is this a mistake of some sort? Did you send it to me? You're like, did you type the wrong email address? They're like, no, it's for you. There's the name of your book and everything. So yeah, I was in a bit of disbelief in the beginning. And yeah, I started working with them. We finalized, they helped me with the layout and the formatting, and we settled on this cover together. That's the nice thing. They gave me quite a bit of input on the cover itself, that sort of thing. And yeah, they were great. And we did obviously a rollout on the 28th of April was the official publishing date. And yeah, it's been doing all right. It's up and down, as I'm sure you know, when it comes to sales. It's as soon as you have a virtual book tour, you get a spike, and then it goes down a little bit. But I mean, the best thing to promote your first book is your second book, right? So I just decided to get back to writing, and my next book should be out in early December of this year. So I am.
Oh wow! Yeah, so you're there. It's done.
I'm in my final round of my own edits at the moment, which should be done by the end of the month, and then it'll go to my editor. She'll have it for probably 6 weeks. She usually takes about 6 weeks. And then from there on, it's back and forth between me and Kingsley with proofreading and so on and so forth. But yeah, we're aiming for December.
So what's the title? What's the title of what's it called? No, look, listen, you can tell us, because there's nobody else here, only you and me. Nobody else will ever see this.
Well,
what's the plot?
I don't have a final title as yet. I'm still finalizing it. But in a nutshell, it's about
liar.
I have a provisional title, which is called Shattered. So I'm branching out a little bit where The Discarded was very much a crime thriller, almost an action thriller, you can say. I would say this one is a bit more of a psychological / locked room thriller.
Oh wow!
Yeah, to give you an idea, in a nutshell, it's about an expedition crew of marine biologists that sail from Southampton to the Puerto Rico Trench to find a new species. But it's a skeleton crew. It's only 12 people on board. And then en route, they find a woman floating in a lifeboat. And they pick her up. And they patch her up. And they, as soon as she gets on her feet, things start going a bit
awry,
haywire on board the vessel. And it kind of
is it set in the present day, or set back in the past?
Set in the present day, yeah.
Brilliant.
So I've actually kind of modeled, as part of the research, I've modeled the vessel around this Sir David Attenborough research vessel. I'm sure you've seen it. So I've kind of modeled the ship around that. So yeah, it's pretty much almost there's a little bit of an Agatha Christie element to it, where there's a killer on board and you don't know who it is. There's multiple perspectives. So I think it's
there is. You're that's another of the, what was this? Christopher Booker wrote a book one time about there's only 7 plots in the whole world. There's actually only 7 various plots, and every book and every film that ever was made or ever will be made will fit into one of those 7. I can't remember them all now, but The Quest is a big one, and The Voyage and The Return is a big one, which is the one you were writing about now. Overcoming the Monster is another one, and so on. So
the hero's journey.
The hero, yeah. So you're hitting another one of those points this time. After your 12 years now, you started writing seriously in 2010.
Yeah.
So if there's somebody watching this who's starting to write or wanting to write or feel actually have an idea, and I'm going to put it down on paper. Have you any ideas or suggestions? What did you do when you started? What did you do right and what did you do wrong? Was there anything that you felt was, Jesus, that was terrible?
Often, yes. Even during like the development stages of the discarded. I think the biggest do for me is if you're going to write about something, pick something that you're interested in, that you don't know much about. Because I did a lot of research for the first book, and I did 3 times as much research for the second book, because I didn't know anything. I always knew I wanted to put write a novel on board a vessel. I didn't know anything about boats. I didn't know anything about marine biology. I didn't know anything about, so it's something that I think if you're going to write about something that you're interested in, that you'll stay interested in, I think. Like
I agree with that. Yeah.
And the biggest don't, I would say, is there's going to be a lot of people who tell you that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, regardless of what you're writing, who you're writing for, or your reason for it. I know there's a lot of people that told me in the beginning that I'm wasting my time. But at the end of the day, if writing is something that you want to do, there isn't something that will stop you from doing it, I think. I don't know if it's the same for you.
I absolutely agree with everything you've said. I have a friend who he's married with 3 kids, either 3 or 4. I think it's 4 kids now, very, very young. But imagine him coming home from work in the evenings, has his dinner. He has 4 kids who wants his attention. So he has to give them the time, obviously, but he has to write. It's in his head to write. So when the kids go to bed or when they're getting ready for bed, his wife reads stories and all that. He goes out to the car. He goes out to his car and writes for half an hour or 3/4 of an hour. And then when the kids are in bed, he can sit down with his wife and they can chat about the day or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's his time. That's his time. I also agree with writing about, there's a lot of people say you should write about what you know. Write about what you know. And yeah, I kind of get that, and I agree with that to a point. But Patricia Cornwall, for example, because she knows forensic stuff, and her books are absolute. Postmortem was her first book, and the first one I read, and just an amazing book. But sometimes you can actually know too much about a subject, and if you decide to write about it, you want to tell everybody how much you know about this subject.
Yeah.
So you're going to fill pages with, like, sales management is my gig during the day, and in the first several drafts of my first book, I was writing an awful lot about sales management, and all very interesting to me, about sales and the ups and downs. But is it interesting to a reader?
Yeah.
No, it's not. So I had a tutor at one stage, and she used to, Mia, brilliant writer, but she used to say, I suggest taking out this.
Yeah.
But after 2 or 3 drafts, it was like delete, red pen, delete.
Yeah.
So I think your idea of having an interest in the subject is brilliant, because what you will do then is learn about it and just put in the stuff that's needed for your story. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I would say most writers. The one point that I would say from my journey was I didn't start social media soon enough. I didn't really start social media until about 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And I published my first book in 2020. I wrote the book first, and then I decided I needed to get on social media.
Yeah.
That was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
If I had to do it again or tell anybody that's listening to this, get the bloody social media started now and build your base. Get in touch with, follow agents, follow influencers, follow bloggers, and have those, be in touch with those people that when your book comes out, it's ready for them.
Yeah, then you've already got that relationship with them. Yeah.
Correct, absolutely.
Yeah.
To start a novel, starting a novel is always hard, and as I said earlier, a lot of people will write themselves into the novel. So it takes a couple of thousand words, like driving down the road, or he woke up. Never have somebody waking up out of a dream or anything. Like it needs to start with action. It needs to start with action. If it's a thriller, and even any story, it needs to start with something. So all you need is a location and a character. That's basically all you need: a location and a character, and then what's the character doing? Why is he there? Who is he following? Who is he watching? And whatever scene is in your head, that's the scene you go with. Now that scene might end up in the middle of the book or at the end. It doesn't really matter. Whatever scene is in your head, write it down. And when you have it written, the story will almost write itself. And I know it's a cliche, but it actually will, because when you've that written down, it'll tell you, actually, no, I need to do something before that, or I need to, and the story will write itself. I know it sounds simple, but and 80, 90, 100,000 words is a tough thing to do. But yes, it can be done. Once you have a character and a location, that's all you need. But social media, you have to get on social media. The other thing I would say is, I write every day. Do you write every night or every day, or how do you write?
I usually, because I'm a teacher, I'm a kindergarten teacher. So usually between my lessons, I have an hour here, 2 hours there. So that's where I actually do most of my writing. So I don't, that's where I usually, and I don't write on weekends, Saturdays, Sundays, I don't write at all. Because I get so much time.
That's your family time. Yeah. That's your home time.
Yeah, so I get, some days I get 3 hours. Some days I get more at work. Some days I get less.
Yeah.
So it all depends on how much time I get.
There. Well, that's good, because you're getting 15 or 16 hours a week. That's very good. To anybody out there in this watching this, I would say try and write every day, even if I don't believe in word counts.
Yeah.
If I set myself a word count of I don't know, 1,500 words, I'll write 1,500 words, but 1,300 of them could be total crap. So they're going to get deleted eventually. So why would I waste my time writing those to delete them? So some nights I write at night, and some nights I might write 50 words. Some nights I might write 2,000 words. Yeah. It depends where I am in the book, depends where I am in the chapter, but I don't do a word count. Every line will get you a line closer to the end. And I almost self-edit as I go on. So once the first draft is done now, it's not polished by any means. It'll probably take 2 or 3 edits, but it's a long way better than the 12 or 14 edits from the first book.
For sure.
And as you said earlier on, then Louis, as well, once your first book is written, you put it out for submission or you self-publish, but you need to be writing the second book. You need to have the second book on the stove, ready to go in 4 or 5 months' time as well. Yeah. So, we're totally in agreement.
Yeah. Look, I think it's
interestingly.
Sorry, carry on.
Interestingly, both our books are set in winter, and I deliberately set my book in January in Ireland during a really, really heavy snowfall. And the second book is it continues an hour after the first book finishes, and the third book will finish an hour after the second book finishes. So there's no time delay over the three books once they're done. But it's interesting that you had the snowy scene in your head as well, and the forest and the bear claw.
Yeah. I think it's like you said in the beginning, you know, the ideas can come from anywhere, and I've just always been kind of fixated on that as a setting for a story.
Yeah.
But I agree with you on the with the writing process itself. I found setting word count goals for myself don't work. There are days where I know I have an hour to write. I'll open my laptop and I'll start where I've stopped the day before, and I'll just go. There's a switch that flicks. It either switches on or it doesn't. And when it doesn't, I close the laptop again and I put it away and I do something else. I will not I don't force myself to write if I feel like I'm gonna just sit there and stare at the screen.
Everybody has you're right, everybody has I have to write logically and sequentially. So wherever the story starts, I write as the story progresses. I have a friend in England, Noelle Houghton, who's a brilliant crime writer, and when she sits down, she writes every night. But when she sits down to write, whatever character is in her head, like she might have 40 pages written of the book, but if a character is in her head and doing something that will actually end up on page 200 of the book, that's what she'll write. So she'll write as whatever is in her head, she will write it. And then when it's all done, she'll copy and paste and put them in. I couldn't do that. I don't know how the hell she does that.
Good Lord.
But that's her way, and she's a best-selling author, and you can't mark. So different strokes for different folks, Louis.
No, definitely. I think I would have a hard time just keeping track of that, like where that goes. Like I'll have that on a different document somewhere, and I'll probably lose it. Like, and then when I go and look for it, it'll be gone, and then I'll have to just change the story completely. So
that was a bummer about losing your laptop, man. That was a tough gig. That was a tough gig.
Look, I mean, it was also it was 7 chapters of a first draft, so like I was quite upset.
But still, The last thing I would say about anybody who wants to, who is in the process of writing their own novel, even if you want to self-publish, which is very simple, you can write your book, bang it up on Amazon. They'll give you an ISBN number, they'll give you a cover, they'll do everything for you, and you can have it up in half an hour. I say don't. You need to get an editor and get it done right and get it formatted right. So even if you want to self-publish, I would still send it out to agents and I would send it out to publishers first, because any feedback you get, and Louis, you sent it out to 200 and you got 70 replies, and that's fair. That's actually good for the industry. The industry kind of feels, I totally don't agree with, but the industry norm is if we don't reply back, it means we're not interested. But but hey, if a publisher is getting 6 or 7 or 8 or 10,000 manuscripts every year, I understand they can't afford to have somebody there who will say sorry and write something nice about it. So over the years that I've got into this, if you don't hear from us in 2 months, forget about it. We're not interested. But I would suggest submitting to agents anyway, because I'm sure out of those 70 that replied to you, there was 3 or 4 or 5 or a dozen that said, we like your work, we like this, we like the character, but it's just not for us at the moment, or we've taken on another book which is similar at the moment. But little things like that will give you a lift. You need the little lift. And if a publisher or an agent gives you a bit of feedback, that's fantastic. And it'll only help you if you decide to self-publish.
It can only help you get better, whatever pointers they give you, because I mean, like you say, they don't have to respond.
Exactly.
It's like a lot of them do say on their submission forms, you know, if you haven't heard from us in 3 months, that's the ship has sailed. But yeah,
Exactly.
I know, yeah. Out of the 72, 75 odd replies I got back, I remember one of them said that it wasn't the right climate for it. Like the literary climate wasn't right for it.
Oh.
I didn't get a lot of detailed feedback. Most of them said, but that's the one I remember really. But most of them just said, we don't think we're the right fit for your story.
Okay.
So that's what most of them say. But yeah, I just kind of guess when I heard from Kingsley, it was the right story for them. So
oh yeah, good publisher, big publisher. So
yeah. So I'm looking forward to. You say there's no specific release plan for your third installment of your trilogy as yet?
No, but the first two were published in March 2020 and 2022.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of hoping that the third one will be March 2023, but I'm not under any pressure. I'm when it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
I'm not going to just shove out something for the sake of a date, Louis.
Yeah.
It's got to be right.
Yeah.
I have a process. I write the book, I'll edit the book, then I have 6 or 7 beta readers who reads the book, and I trust them. I trust them all with my life, and they'll give me honest feedback, and that's the secret to beta readers: honest feedback. There's no point telling you it's absolutely brilliant if they see holes in it. And then I have a friend who is an absolute star editor, and she will go through it and cut out any mistakes. It's only then that I would send it to a publisher or an agent when I'm happy with it. I'm not interested in sending something that I know needs work.
Yeah.
I want it to be as right as possible. And in fact, when I sent my second book to a publisher who published it for me, Red Dog Press, there was the edits that came back. I had them done in half an hour. There was so little to be done. Few spelling mistakes and few just tiny little things.
Yeah.
So that's the way I work. That's the way I roll. It's got to be right.
Yeah.
Before I let it out. And if it's March, it's March. If it's June, it's June. If it's January 2024, I don't care.
So be it.
I really don't care.
Yeah.
So be it. Yeah.
No, I completely agree with that. I think, there are authors out there who somehow, I don't know how, manage to publish a book every 3-4 months. I'm like, my hats off to you. If you can do it, great.
Yeah.
For me,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they do it, but yeah, there is. And I have a friend, Mel Comley, who writes. She writes and self-publishes a book a month, one book a month.
Wow.
But she has 4, and I don't know enough about her life or her how she operates. But she must have a team around her that she's writing. Somebody else is formatting. Somebody else is putting on the cover, uploading it onto Amazon. But it's a little industry that she has, and she churns out great books. Really, like there's no rubbish there. They're really good books. But that's not my scene. I wouldn't be able to do that.
No, I agree.
I know that publishers will, if you have a best-selling novel or 2 best-selling novels, they want to keep your readers interested, and I totally understand. It's a business. As far as publishing is concerned, your book is not your baby. It's a business, and it either sells like a tin of beans or it dies. And they want the readers to keep interested, so they need your books coming out. Lee Child, 1 book a year. Like, he has to have a book a year. Michael Connolly, probably a book or 2 a year. John Sanford, he used to write 1 book a year, and then he wrote 2 books a year for a couple of years, because he was probably asked to do it and paid to do it, but Stephen King must at least do a book a year. They're big thumpers, you know. They're big books. But when my book is ready, it'll be ready. It won't go out until then.
Well, I mean, we'll look forward to. I'm hoping you'll add me to your advanced reader list, and then if it is,
absolutely,
if it is ready, I'd like to have a look at it. Yeah.
You and Courtney and your new baby. Congratulations to you and Courtney, by the way. You're going to be a dad in a few months' time.
Yes, that's right.
That'll take care of your writing. That'll take care of your writing. I'm telling you, boy.
Definitely, yes.
So for my next launch, whenever my next launch is, I expect you in Ireland. I expect you to come over in Ireland and stay with us here for a few days.
I will certainly do that. And if
seeing as you haven't been to our glorious country.
Yeah. And once the COVID regulations get a bit relaxed this side, and I do have maybe my second or third launch, probably because the second one's a bit close. Maybe on my third one, we'll do the same. You can come and see Hong Kong as well.
Oh, I'd love to. Never been there. But
it's a trip.
It's a vibrant city. A vibrant city.
You'll never see anything like it.
Are you actually in Hong Kong, or are you outside someplace?
No, I am. Well, Hong Kong is made up of several islands. Yeah, so you've got a little bit of it is on the Chinese mainland, and then you've got Hong Kong Island just across from the water. That's where like the main business area and where most of the people live. And then I am a 20-minute ferry ride from there. I'm on an island called Lantau, which is a little bit quieter. We did for the first 2 years. We lived in the middle of it, but after two and a half years, it can get a bit much, like sensory wise. So we moved out. The area is called Discovery Bay. So it's
beautiful.
It's a little bit quieter, and it's a bit more family friendly and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
well, congratulations again, and good luck to you both. Give Courtney my regards.
I will do.
And I'll talk to you soon, and I'll see you in Ireland at some stage. I'll see you in Ireland.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Eoghan. I appreciate it.
And you, Louis, my friend. Take care of yourself.
Have a good night.
Nice talking to you.
All right.
Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.